All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to yet another episode of AMA with DNK. This is episode number 4, and as you can see, there's significant improvement in terms of quality and equipment. And if you're following me on social media, on Instagram especially, I have just put in the stories today telling that I have upgraded a few things in my entire streaming thing that I'm doing. And I hope to deliver you better quality content in terms of my learning, my experience, my knowledge around startups and entrepreneurship. So, yeah, thank you so much for joining today me on Saturday evening on AMM with DNK. I quickly need to check uh, that I'm live on both YouTube and Facebook, and then we can kickstart our AMA for today. And yes, of course, we will try to make it more fun, more valuable, and more exciting in the upcoming days for you. There are a lot of things in the pipeline. There are huge announcements in the pipeline. You'll find significant changes and significant rather improvements in the month of August and September. We are going to start with a new series. I'm getting a lot of questions from you guys around investment and pitching, and I'm bringing something for all of you around investment and pitching, and you'll surely be seeing it very soon. And it's going to be big, trust me. Discord server is in the pipeline, so very soon you will see the community going on Discord. So yeah, I am really excited, and I hope that I am able to give you as much of knowledge, as well much information. And I think Saturday is a great time to come online and talk about all these things and chit chat, right? So yes, as you can see, today's topic, we're going to talk about markets, pricing, competition, technology. Today's topic is little open ended, and the reason why I've kept it so, because from last three topics we've been talking about startups, business models, how the entire marketing things are being changed. And I hope and I believe today we're going to talk about a lot more on a wider perspective around markets, pricing, competition. And as I said right in the description of my today's live, that a lot of people reach out to me and talk about that, hey, how do we position our product while creating a new startup, creating a new product. How do we position it correctly? How do you find the right product market fit? How do we create the right pricing model, or how do we experiment with the pricing model? How do we create a differentiator in terms of competition and things like that? And this all is gray area. There's no one master formula for finding the answer to all these things. But as I said, I will try and decode all of these things based on my experience in today's episode. And of course, if you have questions around all these things and areas, feel free to drop your questions in the comment section below. For all those who are watching this but do not know me, my name is Dil Nawaz. I'm the founder of a company called Co-Design Labs, and I also run another company called Power Deck. Co-Design Labs is a design ops management platform, and Power Deck is a company where we work with startups and help them with pitch decks. I have why I do this, because I have technically now almost a decade long experience into startup ecosystem. And I think I have some knowledge and some insights and some learnings in which I've gathered during my journey, and I believe I can share the same with you, and can create a platform, create content for early stage entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs who are now coming and becoming a part of the startup community. And I hope this helps them. Yeah. So that's the idea behind hosting these sessions. And yeah, it's a 1 hour AMA that I do. So yep. Today we are going to talk about, as I said, marketing, pricing, competition, and technology, and I'm very very excited for today's topic. And especially most importantly, I'm going to put up a very strong and very important thrust on technology today, because technology is with time it has become a disruptor, and it has changed the way startups are being done, rather. And also we will try and decode that what is the difference between a technology business and what is the difference between a technology enabled business. I think A lot of times people confuse and mix themselves, and I've seen lot of pitches happening where a lot of guys would come on the platform and would say that, hey, we are a company doing something around AI and ML and blockchain, and they would throw jargons and right, and wherein the business is not about technology but something else on the ground. And I think I've spoken enough on this particular thing in my last live, where I was talking about the business models, that you as an entrepreneur needs to know very, very clearly what you're trying to do and what you're trying to solve. Uh, if you as an entrepreneur do not know what you're trying to sell, right? And when I say sell is equal to your revenue model, and your revenue model is not the solution you're trying to offer. You try to solve certain value for your customers, and that is why they pay you. And what your product is just something around it, right? So yeah, so we will try and decode all those things as well. I have a few questions which I've already received on my Instagram. So let's get started on today's episode of AMA with DNK. Okay, so first let us talk about okay, so I'll rather start in reverse. So first let's talk about technology, right? And how technology becomes an enabler in terms of business or in terms of startup. So in the episode one, we have already spoken about the technology is a very, very critical component when it comes to creating a startup, because without technology you will not have scalability, and without scalability it will not technically be considered startup, right? We have already spoken enough about that already. If you haven't watched episode one on my channel, go and watch that. And I have spoken enough about what is a startup and definition of startups and how government of India treats startups and things like that, right? But today let us decode technology or dissect technology a little more further, right? So one is, there's something called as a technology business. So if you are into the business of selling technology, or if your product is built around technology, or if it's a technical product, then only you are in a business of technology. For example, or your entire customer cycles happens online, something like a Google or a Paytm. So if you are a company like a Google, so let me give you an analogy. You in your entire life haven't met anybody from Google. You haven't seen a representative of Google coming to your house or home and telling you how to use a Google search engine, or somebody from Google asking, even if in case of enterprise, meeting you and telling you, hey, here's my G Suite, or here's my analytics enterprise package, things like that. You haven't seen any of those, right? So if you are a company which is creating a product in terms of technology, then you are a technology company or a technology startup, right? And if and that is the case where your entire customer cycles happens online, right? So you either are just a second, guys, I have some notification and I am sure. Okay, more questions coming in on Instagram and Facebook. I hope I'll pick up all those later on. As I said, that's the format we follow in the question. So okay, so coming back to the technology part. So if you are a technology company doing things online, uh, and your entire customer cycle from acquisition to payment to delivery to service, everything happens online, that is when you are a technology company, something like a Google, right? Something like a Paytm rather. And when I say Paytm, I'm not talking about Paytm mall, I'm specifically talking about Paytm wallet business, or I'm talking about the payment banking business, or I'm talking about the Paytm recharge business. Everything happens online in those cases, right? Now, there's a second layer where technology acts as an enabler. That is where you're not in the business of selling technology, but technology just acts as an enabler. And we further then dissect into three parts. We dissect it as a service business, we dissect it as a hyperlocal business, and a non-hyperlocal business. And this is very important segregation to understand from early stage entrepreneurs perspective, because if you are an early stage entrepreneur, if you're building a company, and if you do not understand this segregation and what sector you technically fall into, it will be really tough for you to then go and figure out market fit, or figure out brand market fit, or product market fit, or figure out the pricing model, and rather also figure out the competition and competitive analysis. And if you're not able to do that, you'll not be able to create a differentiator, and nobody will buy a product, and therefore you will eventually die. So all of these things are very closely connected and very closely related, and therefore understanding all these things from the perspective of technology, and as I said, technology is what creates or what segregates a startup from a non-startup. So therefore this is something we need to understand, right? So let's then talk about internet enabled services or technology enabled services. So what is a technology enabled service? Technology enabled service is something where you are uh, not selling technology, you're selling a service, but technology is just an enabler. Something like what happens in the case of Oyo, Uber, Ola, or Book My Show. So when you sell, if you are a Book My Show, you're not in the business of you're technically in the business of course selling tickets online, but the entire experience happens offline. Despite the fact, no matter how great a website is, if you are not able to give a high quality, highly relevant, great experience offline to the customer, there's no sense in creating a great website in terms of Book My Show. Of course, the UI UX will be a critical part of the entire game, and I will not get into the UI UX discussion today. We'll keep it for another session. But most importantly, if the experience is not great offline, and I'm specifically talking about a services businesses, those where there is no physical product involved. Similarly, in the case of Ola or Uber, right, you book a cab online, the entire user experience of a app has to be great, because if the app is not smooth, if the app does not enable one touch booking of a cab, it will be difficult for your customer. But most importantly, if imagine your Ola driver or your Uber driver messes up on the ride, or kind of bangs the car, or kind of does a rash driving, you will not book another cab later on, right? So this is another thing, right? Similarly, in case of Oyo, you no matter how great the website is, if your experience of staying in that particular hotel, and it kind of applies throughout the entire spectrum, whether Yatra, whether Book My Show, whether Oyo, whether any other app through which you're booking a hotel or a stay or a vacation, if experience is not great offline, it will be really tough to get the next customer, get a repeat sales, right? So therefore UI UX is a different component. As I said, we'll talk about it later on, but this particular category is internet enabled services category or technology enabled services category. And therefore, if you're building a business in this category, the off ground service has to be great if you have to get a repeat sales or if you have to acquire the customer, right? Third and the most important category then comes, which is into logistics. So these are the internet enabled or technology enabled startups or technology enabled companies or technology enabled services or products, but majorly where the logistics component is involved. And again, then we divide logistics into two parts. One is a hyper local logistics, where the time is a very critical component, something like a food delivery service or a medicine delivery service or a product delivery service. And another is, of course, something like where the return facility is available, something like an Amazon or a Flipkart, right? So if in that case, let us say you're ordering food, and I have already decoded and spoken a lot about Swiggy model in my last AMA with DNK. If you haven't watched episode number 3, go and watch that right now. It's still live on my YouTube channel. The reason why I'm telling you to do that is because that is one particular episode where I have given you enough case studies in terms of how Swiggy model was basically the first ever model to become successful in terms of food delivery, and why uh, Food Panda and Tiny Owl failed and things like that. So time becomes a critical component, and especially in the food sector, hyper local logistics services, time becomes a very critical component, because if you're not able to deliver in that particular amount of time, things go for a toss. You will not have another repeat sales. You will not have a great you will not be able to deliver a good customer experience, and therefore the customer will not come to you. And then, of course, in case of a non hyper local logistics business, where there's a possibility of returning the product, something like what happens in a Flipkart or a Amazon, right? So, as I said, summarizing this entire information in a nutshell, how technology is an enabler or how technology aids in doing a business. You are either doing a technology business, right? Something like a Google or a Paytm or a Facebook, like a social, or like a PUBG, or like a Cred, a business which is 100% technology driven happens online, right from your acquisition to delivery, everything happens online. And in that case, you basically become a market leader if you are not rather a first mover. And we already know that Google was not the first search engine, so you may or may not be a first, you may or may not have a first mover advantage. But if you are great in terms of your technology, because you are selling technology in that case, uh, the winner takes almost like a 90% or 96%, 95%, or the majority chunk of the market. That is what happens when you talk about technology as a business, right? Or maybe a SaaS business for that matter, and digital has grown, like a Netflix, or like a Spotify, like a Apple Music, like iCloud, like Google Drive, like Google Suits, like Zoho, like Freshworks. I think all of these business would hardcore be counted as a technology business, or maybe edtech for that matter, right? Digital has kind of grown in COVID times, and we already know that, right? Second is, of course, technology enabled service, where, and we'll talk much more in depth in terms of technology enabled business today. So technology enabled business, where you are not selling technology, but technology only acts as an aid, which is something like a grocery business, or like a big basket, where the service has to happen offline. Grocery business, big basket, Oyo, Ola, Uber, Book My Show, things like that. And third, and the most critical, is like a technology product business, where you are into majorly logistics, hyperlocal, non-hyperlocal. Hyperlocal, with the time criticality becomes very important, something like a medicine delivery or something like a food delivery business. And non-hyperlocal, where is not that big of critical factor, something like a Flipkart or something like a Amazon, things like that. Now, why technology is also very critical from the democratization point of view, or from the enabler point of view, is that technology, if you're not in a technology business, then technology is not a startup. You need to understand that technology just helps in bringing more efficiency, more transparency, and more discovery capability into the entire model, and therefore it gives you better opportunity, right? So if you are not into technology business, then technology, you're not selling technology, then technology is just an enabler in that case. Otherwise, uh, you know uh, you are selling something offline, and technology is only acting as an aid or an enabler, and therefore I said, in terms of enabling discovery, and likes of those. So let us talk about, on a 5-step model, how technology uh, uh, enables any sort of a mechanism uh, to go global, or rather make it more open, more transparent, or more discoverable, or more democratic, right? So number one thing that technology enables in any model, right? And why I'm telling you all these things, because these are basic context that you need to understand before we start decoding about markets, pricing, and competition. And market, pricing, and competition are all sensitive topics, very closely connected with each other. So in a wrong market, no matter if you have zero competition, your product will not work. In a wrong market, no matter you have the lowest price, your product will not work. In a good market, price becomes a sensitive factor. In a good market, competition becomes a sensitive factor. Highly competitive market, bad market to enter. Least competitive market, again bad market to enter, because then you will not be able to build the business, because of zero customer adaptability. So it's a very, very complex matrix to understand. That's what I'm saying. We need to understand technology first in order to decode all of these areas, and therefore I'll try and help segregate all of these things for you further going in this AMA today. As I said, if you have any questions up till now, if you have any questions around these topics, market, pricing, competition, and technology, around building a startup, post them into the comment section. I'll be more than happy to answer those questions for you. And I'm already seeing a couple of questions on my Instagram. If you do not follow Instagram, go and check it out. So post your questions, I'll be happy to answer them. Okay, so how technology makes things more democratic, or more open, or more easy in terms of access, right? Number one, technology technology has broken the information barrier. So technology enables people in getting more aware and more sensitized. So the entire thing becomes from, imagine earlier, and I was giving this example to somebody yesterday, that earlier the only source of information for to you was just, let us say, one channel, which was Doordarshan. So whatever kind of information you were consuming, you're only able to get one perspective, which was Doordarshan's perspective, let us put it that way, right? But later on, what happened later on, multiple news channels came, and somebody was talking about the right side of the story, somebody was talking about the left side of the story, and then somebody was talking about the gray side of the story, or the area in middle. So now you as a consumer had wider option, wider variety, and you could get multiple perspectives. And now, with excess of internet being available to everybody, cheaper smartphones being available, and high quality internet being available, what has happened that you now not just get access to information or via television, but you also have multiple blogs, multiple WhatsApp groups, multiple online channels, independent journalists, YouTube channels, from where you can get multiple lot of kind of information. And you as a human being, as a consumer, as somebody of consumer of information, can then dissect and kind of take multiple perspectives and build your own opinion about it. So technology has basically made things more so technology has kind of given access to the information in a better way, right? And therefore you're more aware, and you're more sensitized, and you have better opinion about things, and therefore as a consumer you have a wider choice, right? And when I say wider choice, most importantly, you also have a wider discovery or a better discovery. So if you don't like channel A, you go to channel B. You don't like channel B, you go to channel C. You don't like channel C, you go to channel D. And this also brings in the healthy competition among the creators and among the producers and service providers. So if there's a healthy competition or better competition, so you as a consumer ultimately gets a better pricing point, and you as a consumer gets a better service rather. So if you and that's why people say that monopolistic economy is a bad economy, right? You need to have a duopoly or a tripoly, or at least you need to have at least 4 or 5 players, because then a healthy competition ultimately benefits consumer in terms of better pricing and better service, right? So that's the reason why technology brings in or flattens the entire competition curve, or flattens the entire discovery curve. So information awareness and sensitization becomes one thing. Then of course discovery is another thing. Then once you have enough information, once you have enough discovery, once you have enough awareness, once you have enough information availability, you can choose. So opportunity, accessibility, and freedom to choose is becomes another component, which is very critical from the consumer point of view. And then of course the transparency, you can't cheat. So imagine 50 years down the line, 50 years earlier, or let us say 20 years earlier, when there was no internet, you had little information about a product, or before buying a product you had little information. But the moment Amazon came into picture, the moment internet came into picture, you can go online, and before even buying a product, read product reviews, read consumer generated content, which is, or people generated content, which is the input about what people think or already using a product. Go and watch hundreds of YouTube videos as a review of the product, and there are independent channels who are doing it, right? Both in paid and unpaid partnership. And of course that's another side of the story, that it has created opportunity for independent creators, and that's a different thing altogether. As I'm saying, it's a very complex and a wide topic to discuss on a 1 hour live, but I think it's very interesting as well. So it brings in a lot of transparency for you also as a consumer, and you can take great decisions then, right? So technology has not just level field the play have not just leveled the entire play field for creators, producers, startups, but has given better opportunity, better discovery, better capability to as a consumer also. Why we need to understand this? Because as a creator, ultimately, as an entrepreneur, as a startup guy, somebody who's building a product, building a content, building a company, building service, we are ultimately doing it's for the customer, right? And we started from the point that we want to solve the problem of the customer, right? And if we are unable to do that, things would become really, really difficult. So therefore we need to understand this entire framework. Okay, how does this entire thing affects pricing, which I have already spoken about? More the competition, the customer can get better pricing. So imagine, let us take an example of a consumer car market, right? If you have to buy a luxury car, the market is cutthroat. There are 5 or 10 options available, but when it comes to a consumer car or consumer electronics, you have hundreds of products available, and based on your budget and based on your choice, you can always negotiate on the price. So better competition leads to better pricing model also. Now, pricing also is a very critical function in terms of a value you deliver to your customer, right? It's all cyclic, it's all matrix, right? So if you are, let us say, delivering high value or high quality value to your customer, no matter higher the competition, you might sell less product on a higher margin and deliver better quality. I have a very simple analogy that I tell to my lot of students and lot of entrepreneurs that I meet, and when I train them, I tell them that you either sell 50 coffee mugs at a 5 rupee price point, or you sell 5 coffee mugs at 50 rupee price point. When you're selling a coffee mug at a 5 rupee price point, you are technically selling coffee. But when you're selling 5 coffee at a 50 rupee price point, you're not selling coffee, you're selling experience. So right from a 5 rupee coffee to a 50 rupee coffee to a 500 rupee coffee, in the current market, everything is available. If, let us say, you find a fly in your 5 rupee coffee, you cannot go to the guy who served you coffee and tell him, hey, there's a fly in my coffee, replace it or change it. He would not even listen to you, because then he's serving just coffee and not playing on the customer experience. But just imagine, all of you who are watching this right now, just imagine what would you do if you find a fly in your 500 rupee coffee. You will just kind of thrash the guy who has served you, and I'm sure you won't even need to thrash, you just have to kind of aware him, and I'm sure he would just replace it for you, and would kind of tell you not to give a bad review, because and he'll come to you and tell you, okay, hey sir, please, I'll give it to you free rather, right? Because he's playing on the experience, right? So all of these things are very well connected. Summarizing all of these points together, now what we have spoken about till now is spoken about technology as an enabler, technology business, technology as an enabler, in service, in product, hyperlocal, non-hyperlocal. We've also spoken about how technology aids in flattening the entire play field for multiple creators, multiple entrepreneurs, multiple startups, and therefore why it becomes very, very critical for you as an entrepreneur to figure out which market you're trying to enter into, and what price point you're trying to get into, and what competition lies in that space. Okay, so let's move ahead about around that point. So let's pick up one of the most critical examples. Let's analyze couple of businesses. Let's analyze couple of businesses let us look at both of their pros and cons, and how technology has enabled and disrupted these markets, right? So one of the most common business idea that I get pitched is the grocery business. And not just and to be honest, this was one of the first business ideas that I personally ever thought about back in 2009, when I was thinking of building my own first startup. Of course, I was running a technology company back then also, which started in 2008. But vegetable delivery, grocery delivery online was one of those ideas I was trying to work in 2010. And of course, the sheet said that we would be millionaires in next 6 months, and it never happened, right? So why grocery? Because it's one of the common ideas still today, and has a very low entry barrier. So a lot of entrepreneurs I've seen would want to try and get into this space of getting into the grocery business. Now let us look at the problem with the grocery market, or let's look at the problem with the fresh fruit and vegetable delivery market, and then we'll talk about the bad and the good, and how you as an entrepreneur can use this particular use case or a case study for your own business, if you are thinking of getting into the startup world, right? So grocery in 2020 is an overcluttered market. But again, a lot has changed into the pre-COVID and the post-COVID era, right? Pre-COVID, when we used to speak about grocery, grocery was overcluttered and only dominated by guys who were heavily funded. So somebody like a Grofer, somebody like a big basket, or somebody like maybe another company who's heavily funded by venture capital would only be the one to get to be into the grocery space and dominate this space. The reason why is because this particular space has a very low ticket size, right? And more than the low ticket size, it has low margin as well. So you would not be ordering more than like a 500 rupee or 1,000 rupee or 2,000 rupee grocery. And overall, because the availability of grocery is so high and it is so easily accessible, the entire margin factor is very low. So therefore, to break even, it takes a lot of time, or only the or only the largest player would survive in the market, which is heavily backed by a VC. And therefore, a lot of small startups have died in this case, right? Another point is it is highly logistically challenging, right? So even if you have to order like a 500 rupee grocery delivery where you're just making a 50 rupee margin, right? Or like a 100 rupee margin, like a 200 rupee margin, you have to employ a guy to kind of deliver the grocery. And then you will also have to pay him for the petrol in order to deliver the grocery. So you need really huge volume in order to become profitable in this business, because as I said, it is logistically challenging. It has a low margin, and the logistics then kind of kills your margin more. And then worse is you're dealing with items which are perishable in nature if you're getting into vegetable and food delivery, fruit delivery, right? So then you're dealing with the perishable food products, and therefore your margin thins more, right? Your margin goes down higher. A bad space to be in if you talk about pre-COVID era. Now you talk about post-COVID era, right? Or maybe the COVID era, because everything went into a lockdown and people had to adopt digital, and because digital spiked by like 4x, right? Grocery became a hot market, and companies like Big Basket and Grofers, and maybe even Swiggy, which introduced Genie in the competition of Dunzo, or rather Dunzo, saw a huge spike in their overall usage. And this I think I've already spoken about in one of my lives, in one of my sessions, where I said that COVID technically brought the future earlier. So all those who are trying to push digital to the next front, edtech businesses, digital gaming, e-gaming, e-commerce, gig economy, freelance economy, they technically were pushed a little higher by COVID, right? So coming back to the point, yeah. So basically, this is why grocery was a bad market. But in COVID, all of those who were there already saw a huge spike in their entire sales, and therefore they were able to make higher money, right? Why it's a great business to be in? It's a great business because it has a low entry barrier. And I would rather not say it's a good point. It's a mixed point. So from the point of view that it has low entry barrier, lot many people can try it, right? And when from the point of view of low entry barrier, it's a highly competitive space. So this is the reason why, other than the VC backed companies, we have not seen a local winner or local majority market player in this business, because it is very thin in terms of margin, and has a very low entry barrier. So anybody can start. The least MVP, and I'll have a different session where I talk about how to build a product and UI UX and MVP and how it affects everything together, or affects consumer behavior as well. I think this entire entry barrier can also be tapped by just as simple as a WhatsApp chat. I've seen lot of startups trying to get into the grocery business uh, just by putting up a number online and saying, hey, we'll take up the order, and by sending the grocery list on WhatsApp to the consumers, and by channelizing a lot of business via that. So low entry barrier. So therefore, because it is low entry barrier, it's easier to enter into this particular business. But of course, low margins, low ticket size, perishable products thins out the margin even further, and therefore it's a tough business to be in. As I said, the only way it can be enabled faster by technology is by using a cheaper or a lower level MVP, which can be done on WhatsApp, right? So this is one case study we can talk about. Another thing, and if you're watching this as a student, and I talk to a lot of students and early stage entrepreneurs also who are just going to start a business very soon. I think there are a couple of more business ideas which you as a first time entrepreneur can now build in 2020, leveraging technology. And see, going ahead, post COVID times, you will no matter what have to leverage technology, right? And technology any which way was a very critical component when it comes to startup, but now you will have to leverage technology no matter what happens, because technology will not just be an enabler but a game changer, and we've seen this happening because of the COVID thing, right? So one business idea that I can talk about is, and these are all low hanging fruits, so do not consider them to be a great business startup idea, but consider them to be a startup idea which are great from the entry level point of view. Because if even if these fails, the kind of learning you're going to get while you're building these ideas and the kind of low entry barrier all of these ideas have will teach you a lot, and will kind of help you in sharpening up your learning curve a lot as an early stage entrepreneur or first time entrepreneur, right? So the first idea is basically anything around rental services. So primary book rental, book exchange, rental of any other stuff, or exchange. So this entire model back in college or even in a local community can be experimented a lot. And it's a great time to now build this particular kind of a startup business or startup idea for a very simple reason, that now because of COVID, people would not, who have kind of lost their income and kind of have got salary reductions, would not want to kind of spend their money onto acquiring new things. Rather, people would want to rent out things, and therefore shared economy will also get a boost in this space, right? So therefore, anything around rental. So if you're a student, you can get into the space of product rental, cloth rental, book exchange, product exchange. You can create a Discord, you can create a Slack, you can create a WhatsApp group, you can create a Telegram group where things like that can happen, or maybe a Facebook group or a Facebook community from the low hanging point of view. And then even if you are a early stage entrepreneur, or like somebody who's trying to experiment, you can begin with this and see the pattern in terms of consumer, what the consumer is looking for, and then you can build on top of that particular model and figure out what your consumer wants, and then get into more niche. That is one way you can experiment around this idea. Second is around skill based teaching or skill based learning. So if you are an early stage guy, or if you are somebody who is back in college, I'm sure in college people want to kind of, or in early stage, teaching is a hot business. And with edtech, and I'll give you a very interesting example from the gymming and training point of view, and I'll wait for a couple of more minutes before I get into that example. So from the skill based point of view, from the teaching and training point of view, I think anything, teaching anything, music, guitar, painting, coding for that matter, even now gyms have come online, right? We have seen huge spike in terms of health and fitness startup leveraging technology. I think that's a great business to be in, or rather just a marketplace where you can connect to people. Last episode of DNK, I've spoken about all these business models. Go and watch that if you haven't watched that, right? So I've spoken about how can you create an aggregator model, how can you create a platform model, how can you create a matchmaker model. So I've tried and given enough information around all these business models there, right? Okay, so skill based, as I said, skill based teaching, skill based education becomes a great model where you can get into, and kind of, and again, it's a low hanging fruit. You can start with as simple as a WhatsApp group, as a Discord server, as a Slack community, or as a Telegram community, or as a WhatsApp group, and you can start teaching people. You can start doing free webinars, you can start doing seminars, webinars, you can start doing live events, you can start talking about your skill set, and you can start teaching people a lot of these things. So again, a low hanging fruit, right? Great business to be in, and especially great business to get into from the starting or the learning point of view, and great for somebody who is who's a student rather, and back in college, who's thinking of building a startup, right? As I said, all of these are not billion-dollar businesses or million-dollar businesses, and none of these might become a unicorn. Or maybe if you pivot the model, or build them around right technology, but maybe not on day one, and they might also not be a VC or a angel investor a likable startup. But of course, then based on the business model, we can talk further about it later on, right? Another great business idea is around local logistics, and finding a space about lack of availability of any product which is required local in the local ecosystem. So if you, let us say, are in college, t-shirt business or things which are kind of not available in the college campus are a great idea to venture into. Events and logistics. So if the college is hosting a lot of events, college happen of course colleges are shut down right now, but very soon when they are going to get opened up, any and everything that is happening around an event, that is happening around activities that are happening in the college, products that you can procure. I think that is one space again you can venture into and think about building your business around, right? And again, going back to the baseline, all of these are great businesses to be in from the technology point of view. Are can be done now only because technology has enabled them to happen. But high competition because of low entry barrier, therefore the pricing model might not be great. Pricing might be, your margin might be really really thin. There can be huge competition. I've seen a lot of guys getting into t-shirt business into college. It's a tough market to crack. I've seen a lot of guys getting into rental business, tough market to crack. I've seen a lot of guys getting into e-commerce business, tough market to crack. But if you are able to create a correct model or find a niche and see what your audience is looking for, I think you will over time be able to create a profitable business. As I said again, not these are not great angel investor backed ideas. These are not VC fundable ideas, but of course these are great entry level pointers to venture into. Coming back to the gym thing that I was talking about, right? I don't know whether you've seen that live on my Instagram with one of my kind of friends called Kunal Rajput. He runs a Instagram page called Subtle Strength, and he also runs another Instagram close community called Unlock. Uh, he started Unlock back in April when COVID happened, and if you know, gyms haven't opened yet, right? And gym trainers and especially your these movie halls and colleges are a few spaces which are still struggling because of COVID, because of because people cannot gather in all these areas and all these spaces, right? So now what happens? He started and I was super impressed when I saw this happening. He started a private Instagram page called Unlock, and now he's doing something called as Unlock Extreme. It is only added by request, so you can only follow the page once you have paid the money. So you become a part of the community, and then there's exclusive content that goes onto that Instagram page, both in terms of lives, posts, now of course reels, and IGTV videos. So imagine the level of kind of content and localization that can happen on the platform. So and I was super impressed when I saw this, because if a general entrepreneur would have been there, he would have thought of building an app of his own. But then what Kunal did is very intelligent rather, because Kunal, number one, leveraged his existing audience. He roughly had like around 20 or 40,000 followers on Instagram. So he leveraged an existing platform with existing followers on on the features given on the existing platform. So it is like a lowest hanging fruit, zero investment, and he kind of kickstarted the entire thing within like a jiffy, and he was able to kind of build a great audience. And now he's, I think it's a season 4 or a 5. So I think it's a great way of testing out whether what you're trying to do works or not. And of course, as I said, I've spoken again about this in last episode of my MMA with DNK, that if you are not leveraging technology in terms of evaluating or updating a business model, you're going to definitely go out of business. Brick and mortar business doesn't work out anymore, guys. So yeah, so that is another great example of how you can leverage technology. Okay, we have spoken enough about technology. Now let us come on to a couple of questions around market competition and pricing model. If you have any, post them in the comment section. And I hope this is of lot of value, because this will not just give you perspective, but it will also help you in opening your mind and understanding what sector you fit into while you're building a startup, right? And figuring out the right product market fit or your right brand market fit becomes extremely critical while building a startup, because if you do not know where do you fit in, it will be difficult for you to put up a price point, and therefore it will also be very, very difficult for you to then find the right customer. And then if you'll not be able to charge the right customer in the right way, you will not be able to make money, and therefore you'll fail. It's all connected, guys. It's all super important. And somebody who's into early stage without experience of practically experience all this thing will not be able to tell you. The reason why I think I'm able to tell you all of these things, because I've built a couple of companies myself. I've failed a few companies, failed a few ventures, and in the current company, when we were building Code Design Labs, which is my current company, right? I think we almost took almost like 2 years in figuring out eventually what business model do we have, and do we have created. And I think now we pretty much know where we fit in terms of the entire business model. So yeah, I think I have personally some clarity on what we're doing and how to crack this entire model, right? Okay, so I have a small write up to kind of narrate to all of you who are watching this. I hope this adds certain, again, more insights into all those who are watching. So pricing, competition, and market is also a huge factor of supply and demand, right? And we've all spoken about this. So if the we all already have kind of, this is basic economics 101. Supply is huge, demand is low, pricing will go down because there's too much, because the market will be flooded with the product. Supply is less, demand is huge, the pricing will go up. We have seen all of this happening, right? But it is not this way every time. There are a lot of variables and lot of factors that general people do not consider. As I said, in my finance or business model webinar or business model classroom, when I talk to a lot of entrepreneurs, I tell them that the very basic equation of business is not profit is equal to sales price minus cost price. It is much complex than that. There's a very variable called X, and it has got hundreds of hidden factors. If it would have been that easy, everybody would have been able to do it, right? So therefore, it is not just supply and demand. There are multiple factors around it. Where are you selling? To whom you're selling? What is the price point? What is the product market fit? Who are the other competitors? What is the entry barrier? What is the MVP? How's your overall customer experience? Thousands of things. And of course, as I said, it is tough to compile all of this information in 1 hour, but I'm sure it will, once you listen to this, and even if you're listening back to it, it will give you certain, it will fire up your neurons and will give you certain more insights about all of these things. Okay, so I have, as I was saying, I have a small narrative or a small paragraph to read about. Let's listen to this, and then we'll come back onto this. Okay, so if the demand is huge and the entry barrier is low, market becomes flooded with players and competition increases, thereby pricing becomes a key driving factor for the buyer. Let me repeat that line. It's very, very confusing but very comprehensive at the same time. So I'm saying, if the demand is huge, okay, so if the demand is huge, technically what will happen? More people will enter into the market. But again, the entry barrier is low. If the demand is huge but the entry barrier is high, so everybody would want to buy car, right? It's a huge market. Demand is huge. Millions of cars are sold every year, but entry barrier is very high. To create a car business, you have to set up a 1,000 crore factory, without which you cannot enter, and therefore you need 1,000 crore investment. And then car is a non-startup business model, right? So that's why I'm saying that technology becomes a very critical component, because technology has enables more people to get into the market really, very quickly. I hope you're able to understand this, and you're able to get a lot of perspective around it. Okay, so what I was saying is, if the demand is huge and the entry barrier is low, I'm talking about low entry barrier right now, because I've spoken about all the business models that have low entry barrier: grocery, laundry, food delivery, t-shirt business, skill business, like those. So if the demand is huge and the entry barrier is low, market becomes flooded with players and competition increases a lot. And therefore, the entire model becomes price sensitive. Therefore, the price becomes the key driving factor for the buyer, until and unless the product and service is monopolistic, which means that despite the fact the price point is low entry barrier is low, but if you are somehow able to secure the IP, then the market becomes monopolistic. This is the reason why telecom being a tough market, Anil Ambani, Mukesh Ambani, yeah, Mukesh Ambani was able to crack it with Jio because he could put in 10,000 crore rupees from his own pocket. And this is the reason why he could now. Oh, so I think I'm really sorry. I think I missed from the geo part. Okay, I just noticed I turned off my mic and yeah. Really sorry, guys. It's a new mic and I accidentally touched the mute button. I'm really sorry, but I hope you're able to hear me now. Okay, so I was giving you the example of geo, and as I was saying that the only reason why geo could do it is because Mukesh Ambani could put in his own money into the entire venture, and this was the only reason why he could do it. So as I was saying, I'm not sure whether you were you able to hear the entire narrative that I spoke about, or should I repeat it? I'm so sorry for this kind of a technical glitch. I make sure this is not happening from the next time. Such kind of small glitches happen. Okay, let me quickly check where I was once again. But that's the good part about live. You get an instant feedback. Thank you so much for staying there, guys. Thanks Naman. Thanks Nakul. Nakul, I'll pick up your question in a while. Just let me finish a few more pointers around today's kind of content that I've prepared, and then I'll pick up the questions that I got on Instagram and other places. Right? Okay. So did you guys hear about? Okay, so let me check once again. I know where I missed onto the audio. My bad. That's risky. Okay, perfect. So I'll kind of try and explain once again what I was talking about. So I was talking about. So let me read that narrative once again, and then we can conclude today's session. So I was saying. So if the demand is huge, and the entry barrier overall in general is kind of low in the market. Okay. Okay, so then what happens in such a case? So if the demand is huge and the entry barrier is low, in that case, what happens? Because a lot of people then enter into the market, right? And therefore the competition becomes very very high, and therefore the price becomes the only driving factor for the entire thing or the entire market. But if you even in that case, if you are a company that has somehow been able to kind of uh, uh, have an IP, I think the monopoly can still then happen in that case, right? But on the other side, let's talk about that. But in the other side, if you talk about high entry barrier businesses, something like a mobile phone or a car market or a tech product market, right? Where the setup cost is really really huge, where the entry barrier is really 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 high. In all those cases, what happens then? Innovation and pricing becomes a key driving factor, and innovation then becomes a very critical, very key factor in terms of what has to be done, right? And of course, as I said, I was giving you the example of Flipkart, that the only telecom being a highly competitive space, telecom being a highly a space which was very tough to crack. And I was giving the example of Flipkart. The only reason why GeoMart could happen, the only reason why Geo telecom could happen, because Anil Ambani invested his own, Mukesh Ambani invested his own 10,000 crore of rupees. So in such cases, what happens is basically you have to put in your own money. So as I was giving you the example of Flipkart, what happens that if you are a entrepreneur, if you go to an investor today and tell him that, hey, I want to kind of I have an idea of creating a generic e-commerce platform or a generic marketplace like Flipkart, like Amazon, nobody's going to give you money, because Flipkart technically sucked out the entire money available for generic e-commerce, and therefore the money is not available with VCs anymore. But because Ambani had his own money, and or maybe he could raise it as a debt capital from banks, he could build Geo, and he could build then GeoMart, and now he's trying to compete with other e-commerce players, things like that, right? So I think that therefore this entire factor becomes very very critical from the point of view of understanding of how technology and entry barrier plays a very critical role. Okay, so I have already spoken about the unlock thing by Kunal, and of course, if you are into fitness, you should check that out. But most importantly, that is a great example of building an MVP. We will of course host another section on MVP, but that's a great example of how you leverage the existing platform and build and use the existing audience and build on top of it. Okay, so now coming on to a few basic questions which are always asked, that how to find the right market and market positioning, right? So for that, you need to understand there's an entire framework of something called the product market fit, right? What is the product market fit? So product market fit is basically when you create a product and using multiple iterations try and find the uh, right customer base for selling that product at the right price point, so that they're able to make correct profit, and you're able to get sustainable business around that product in the long run. That is more or less like a product market fit. So therefore, on day one, you may or may not have a correct pricing model, or you may not have a correct pricing for your service or your product, but that comes through multiple iterations, right? Because you will have to go and experiment. Of course, on day one, you would know some sort of, I would say, some sort of a broad customer base, because of course, when you're building a company, you know whom you are trying to sell. Because this is another question that I'm asked often, where a lot of entrepreneurs come and ask me that how do we find the first customer? And my to my surprise, my point is that if you do not know who's going to be a first customer for whom you're building a startup, because technically when you're building a startup, you would have for sure done some sort of a customer survey. You would have for sure done some sort of a pain point analysis, and therefore on top of it, you're building a company, or you're building a business, right? Therefore, uh, all those people whose pain point you've identified, and all those people around whom you're trying to build the business on, or on whom you have done the survey, I think these are the people who technically become your first customer, or become the low hanging fruit, or low hanging customer for your business, right? So therefore, uh, through iteration, through experimentation around all these people, you basically then figure out the right price point, and therefore you then figure out the right product market fit. Number one. Okay, how do you do competitive analysis? Competitive analysis is basically a part of something called as market analysis. When it comes to market analysis, I do a few webinars, and I'll rather host a dedicated session on market analysis. But there are technically two ways of doing a market analysis. One is, of course, you look at the market size from the consumer point of view, from the customer point of view, from the money point of view, that how big is the market. But you also look the market from the competition point of view, and therefore you not just only do the feature by feature analysis of the competition, but you also do something called as competitive landscape. You can simply google the keywords competitive benchmarking, competitive landscaping. You'll be finding these frameworks, which I technically do with a lot of my entrepreneurs in my classroom programs. And when we do this session, we help them in analyzing who their direct and indirect competition is. And when you start doing it, you, as I said, not just do a market comparison from the landscape point of view, you also do the feature comparison, and you also do the pricing comparison. And through this, you get a broader perspective from the point of view of how your product has to be priced, right? And then of course, on top of it, if you have great branding, great ip, great price point, I think that is how you create a broader differentiator. One thing all of you need to understand is that market analysis is not marketing analysis. Marketing is a different activity altogether. Marketing is more or less, once you have a product built up, something that you take to the customer is via marketing, wherein market analysis is pre-product launch. Market analysis enables you to kind of think about in what market to launch the product. But once you've launched the product, then you do marketing. So there's a huge difference between market and marketing. Do not get confused between market and marketing as an entrepreneur. Something like what design and design thinking is, right? So that's kind of a critical point for today. Okay, so now let us pick up a few questions that I've got both on Instagram and uh, okay, so let's conclude today's session. And if you have more questions, if you have any questions about what I've kind of spoken about today, feel free to reach out to me on Instagram. Feel free to reach out to me on other social media platforms. Do spread a word about what I'm trying to do, what we're trying to do together. I'm trying to create a lot of value for you guys. So do spread a word about it. That'll make me very happy. And of course, we will try and host these sessions. Of course, we do it every Saturday, right? Okay. So let us quickly pick up the questions from Instagram first, or rather, let me pick up the question from here. Okay, so Nakul have a question is that when we talk about technology, how do we drive innovation in new product cycle? Innovation drives differentiation and is one of the most important factors in company success. Nakul, okay, so let me try and give you a much more detailed perspective about this particular question. Uh, so when we talk about technology, I think I've already spoken about this, that you need to first figure out whether you are into technology business or you are into technology, you're into business which is where the sorry where, or you're in a business which is where technology is an enabler. Let me repeat what I'm trying to say. You need to figure out whether you are into business of selling technology, you're into technology business, or you are into a business where technology is an enabler. If you are into business of technology, if you're building a company like a Paytm or a Google, then technology becomes the entire game changer, right? As simple as that. All of us use Chrome because it is better and not Internet Explorer anymore, because it's not a great technology. So when it comes to technology, when you sell technology, technology becomes the make or the break game. But when you are into a business where technology is an enabler, in that case, what happens that offline, or because then in the enabler sense, online UI UX will be a critical factor, but offline factor will also count in for in terms of customer experience and delivery. So if you have a great website, a great platform, a great user experience online, but offline, if you are not able to deliver good service, bad driver you found in Uber, bad room you found in Oyo, or you did not have a great experience while booking a ticket from Book My Show for a particular cinema hall, then the entire game changes. So that is the differentiator, or point number one you need to understand. Okay. Second, how do we drive innovation and new product cycle? Okay. So in that case, when you talk about innovation, I think I've already spoken about this again. And Nakul, I would request and suggest that if you can go and refer to the last session of AMA with DNK. Uh, One, the difference between innovation and invention. If you're talking about technology innovation, it will somehow be derived from invention. But if you're talking about emotional innovation, experiential innovation, brand innovation, and all other types of innovations, then in that case, invention or technology will not be a game changer, right? Again, going back to the example of what Flipkart and Swiggy did, and again we spoke about it. Flipkart enabled COD, which is more of experiential innovation and rather than a technical innovation, right? For example, Cred is a fantastic example. What Cred basically started giving you credit points, 1 rupee. And I have been using Cred for almost like a year, or rather technically just from the day when it was launched, right? It is just an experiential innovation. You were always paying money for the credit card via a bank. Now you just have to use another platform, and Cred doesn't even charge you anything for that, right? How does Cred make money? We will maybe do a case study on that later on. But Cred, of course, would be making money from the banks, and it's more of a bank pay to the company model, or the B2B model, and not a B2C business model. So we'll talk about that in another live someday. And of course, yeah, coming back to the question. So in that case, how do you drive the new product cycle? New product cycle in that case, or in those cases, is driven completely through how innovation factor is incorporated into your startup cycle or product cycle. What do I mean by that? I mean that if you're a technical company or a technology company, in that case the product cycle will be innovation driven, right? But if you are a services company, then the new product cycle will be services driven and not innovation driven or invention driven. So therefore, of course, I need to then dissect. DM me on Instagram after the session, and let's maybe talk tomorrow. I can talk to you, have a detailed conversation with you on this, and rather have a look at your business model and help you evaluate. But this is a much deeper analysis thing. And as I said, this is the broader perspective I can give you, that if it's a technical innovation, then the new product cycle will be innovation driven, and therefore you'll have to create a differentiator from a better innovation, better product usage point of view from a competition. But if it's services, it will be completely experiential and service driven. I hope that answers the question. Innovation drives differentiation and is one of the most important factors in company success. No, not just innovation. I would say, Nakul, again referring back to your question, it's combined, or it's rather it's a success of a company is a factor of thousands of things, right from your branding to your sales strategy to your accounts and finance and how you do numbers, to the kind of products you make, to the kind of team you have, to the kind of market you are playing in, to the kind of time. Most importantly, a lot of companies who were on the verge of failure or were not even being looked upon at kind of found success in COVID times. Exceptional case, but yes. So I think success is a very gray area, and I'm sure I can't give you. There's no quantifiable answer for that, but yeah, there are hundreds of factors when it comes to driving of success. Uh, can you provide a case study between Paytm and Freecharge? Okay, so Nakul, give me time till another live next Saturday. Let me present a detailed case study on Paytm and Freecharge, and let me try and gain more insights around it. Okay, more questions which have come on Instagram, and I'm not sure if I've got any more questions, but let's see. Okay, so 3 questions only on Instagram. Let's answer them and then let's wrap. How risk analysis plays an important role in execution of ideas. I think this is asked by somebody called as Upsanity. I don't know what this means. Uppsanity. Okay, whosoever you are. Let me try and answer this question. How risk analysis plays an important role in execution. So, of course, you will have to do a lot of planning, which is technically also technically market is a part of market analysis before even you execute your ideas. Because I think I've already spoken about that as a startup, I think. Let me first also remove these banners. I thought I'll wrap with them. Okay. I think because when you are building a startup, you have limited time, limited money, and very limited energy and very limited resources, right? And there's less of money you have, of course. Everybody starts frugal. So therefore, planning and risk analysis and analyzing all these things technically, which I spoke about, like the market, the competition, the entry barriers, the pricing factor, the consumer profiling, all of these becomes very, very critical when you're trying to get into the market, because only then you will be able to execute your idea in a better way, or technically you'll be able to find a better product market fit or better positioning, or rather you can then pivot. So if, let us say, if generic e-commerce marketplace is not a great idea or great business to be in 2020, niche uh, uh, e-commerce marketplace or niche product e-commerce is a great business. So for example, you have Sleepy Owl just for coffee, right? You have Tea Trunk just for tea. You have Label Life just for ethnic wear. You have I was just seeing some website where they're just only selling achars and pickles and things like that. So niche is the new, I would say, new hit business model. So the nicher you are, or the more vertically deep you are into your entire model, I think the better you become somehow. I believe that. So I think the better analysis you have, the better research you do, I think the better perspective, the better product market fit, the better brand market fit, the better positioning you'll be able to figure out for your business model or business, and therefore you'll be able to penetrate better and get better into the entire overall business market fit, I would say. Pulkit says how to raise fund for a startup. Pulkit, that's another session for another day. I think I will dedicatedly or definitely have a dedicated live on fundraising, or rather I'll have rather have a webinar or a closed room webinar on fundraising and pitching. That's my area of expertise. I work with startups day in day out at PowerDeck, and where I work with them in enabling them to create pitch decks, startup decks, and sales deck, and also help them with a lot of funding advice. But I think answer to this question, how to raise fund for startup, I think it's a 1 hour or rather 3-hour session in itself. So it's not a question. I think it's a very general point, and unless I'm not able to give you detailed perspective about it, I think it will not be a justice to this question. If I have to answer it in one word, how to find an angel investor. or go to a bank and raise a loan. Okay. Another question is spending a huge amount in one banner. Okay, very interesting. Spending a huge amount in one banner in the main market or printing many small pamphlets or big posters. Okay, so this is more from the marketing angle, but let me try and answer that. I think both of them depend upon what kind of brand you are or what kind of positioning you have. Typically, from the marketing terminology or marketing jargon, there's something called an ATL and BTL, above the belt and below the belt, something like that. There's some kind of a jargon like that. I'm not sure about the number, or about the jargon, but which means that ATL is something which is better quality marketing, like a radio or a TV or a bigger hoarding, and BTL is something like a lower level, low quality marketing, like a pamphlet distribution and things like that, right? So now what happens is that if you are a startup which is trying to cater and reach out to the consumer, which you think are a mass market, may not, and of course budgets is also a great thing, because if you are going to pick up one banner and put it on like a prominent space, I think you will be spending a couple of lakhs of rupees on that. But if you are going to print a few small pamphlets and poster and go to distribute, I think you will be able to get the job done in 1/10 of the cost, right? So if you are a high tech product company, if you're a high tech company with big deep pockets, and if you try to want to cater to that audience, something like Uber, I think one banner or a huge big banner would be a great marketing strategy. But if you are a company which is like a local grocery store or a food store or a home cooked food or a tiffin service center, something which is very localized, very super hyper local, I would say, if that's the word, I think then a small pamphlet and posters should work better. If you're a tuition company, if you're a tuition teacher, if you're a local teacher, if you're a yoga or a gym instructor, somebody trying to cater a local community or a local space or a local market, I think in that case or that sense, a small pamphlet or poster should work out better for you. Yeah. Okay, all right, that's it. Okay, super. So I think I have answered all the questions. I have already spoken for almost like 1 hour 15 minutes. If you are still watching this, thank you so much for staying till the end. I think I was able to give you a lot of insights and perspective around most important technology and how it affects markets, pricing, and business model. I've already spoken about that in my last episode, and competition. We will have dedicated lives or rather dedicated webinar around all these topics where we go more in depth into all these things. So yeah, I think that's it for today. Thank you so much for watching AMA with DNK. Let me put up the banners. If you're still watching this, guys, it's a request. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your love. If you like what I'm doing, subscribe to my YouTube channel. I saw that 69% of people are not subscribing to the channel. I don't know why. They're still watching the content on my YouTube channel but not subscribing. Show me some love. Share this with your friends. Share this in the startup community. I'm very sure this is going to be helpful for early stage student entrepreneurs, early stage entrepreneurs, people are trying to get into startup domain for the first time. I am speaking all this from my experience of almost like a decade long. Have worked with thousands of startups till now, have evaluated thousands of decks till now, and I'm sure this will be a lot of value to people who are new and trying to get into the startup domain. So thank you so much for subscribing. All those who already subscribed, thank you so much for following, for subscribing. Give me a shout out on social media if you can. Share this with your friends, your colleagues. Show me some love. And thank you so much for watching today's episode of Aim with DNK. This was episode number 4. Next Saturday, we are going to go on live with episode number 5. And yeah, so thank you so much. Have a great weekend. Go and subscribe now, like, comment, share, follow on Instagram. And once again, thank you so much. Have a great night. Have a good night and have a great weekend. Thank you. Bye-bye. Take care. See you. See you on next live. Aim with DNK.